everything on a quantum physics level always just maintains potential until it is measured or it is observed by human spirit to be something, and it changes it into that. And that's kind of a very, if you want to study quantum physics, there's a very interesting book, actually. I think it's called it's like Jesus the Quantum Physicist. It's about a Christian perspective about quantum physics, and very, very interesting. But anyways, so I want to add one thing to an understanding of vision, because remember in vision we said the question is, how come it was so easy, right? So I want to give an example. Now in the US, like some areas, depending on like the speed limit is kind of a suggestion, so I don't really follow a speed limit. If I go more than 10 miles an hour with a speed limit, that might, but from what I heard, people like in Australia, at least, like you better follow a speed limit or else you get a ticket. That makes sense. So I want you to imagine you're going somewhere on Monday and you're in a hurry, and all of a sudden you're being pulled over by the police, and you realize I was just doing like 40K over the speed limit in a school zone. Like everyone was, right? But you weren't paying attention because you're on your phone. All right. Who's stressed about this? Are you going to get a ticket? Yes.
You can lose your license.
Do you deserve a ticket? For sure. You could be running over little children. That's not cool, right?
No, you don't run over anyone.
You could, because you're speeding, you're on your phone, like you clearly deserve some consequences of this. Like, and the police officer walks up to your car and he's like, just want to tell you right off the bat, I'm just going to give you a warning. You're like, everyone goes, because I did some things wrong. I didn't do everything perfectly, but I'm not getting the consequences, right? It's called mercy. Mercy. Right? And then he adds this, he goes, and by the way, we have a really interesting community outreach program going on this month. Here's a $100 Starbucks gift card. Coffee's on us this month. Have a great day. And now you're super confused. You're like, I didn't know, I don't know what I did to get this. That makes sense? It's just like this weird feeling like, well, like it shouldn't be this good because I definitely made some mistakes, and that didn't seem to have to pay the price for that. And things weirdly turned out much better than they technically should have. Does that make just you understand that feeling?
Yeah.
So it's called mercy and grace. It's all throughout the New Testament, but that feeling, remember we talked about the feeling, should be part of your vision in the form of the question of, like, I'm just really curious, how come this was so easy? Am I confused? Make sense? The cute, confused, playful sense of, like, I know I'm screwed up, but it didn't seem to impact my business that much, and I don't really know, like, it's bigger than I think I deserve, see? And so the more in alignment you can be with that, things can show up in your life. Like Patrick Powers, like some people have been in Manatech before, right? I knew Patrick Powers' name. Why? Because years ago, when he was in Manatech, we were like, this Patrick Powers dude, he's building this amazing business. It's incredible. Like everyone was like, Patrick Powers. Like, I didn't know him, but he recruited himself into my business. Does that make sense? You understand? I'm gonna be like, okay, cool. So that's if you have a vision, right? In the vision, if I go, how do you do this? Right? You don't want to have this sense in your vision of like, well, I won the personal development essentially. I did this, did everything perfectly, did it really hard, really come, I never gave up. Well, good for you. What are you going to have to do to keep this business? You're going to have to continue to win the personal development Olympics, or else. How's that feel? Exhausting, right? You understand? So you want the business to flow, and that's what we're going to talk about, flow. But someone brought up something, and I want to actually talk about maybe the most important thing we'll talk about today is overcoming disappointments. Okay, and anyone have anyone? having disappointment in their lives when things didn't work out, like you in the past, like you married the wrong person, you're like, why did I get like this? You know, someone you cared about died young, like there's a lot of opportunity for disappointment. Okay. And here's one thing to understand. Unresolved disappointment occupies a place in your heart that faith is supposed to occupy. If you don't resolve it, you can't move forward. You're stuck.
That's true.
Okay. And there's spiritual body aspects to disappointment. Okay. And so we're going to talk briefly about that because everything I tell you, you're like, oh, that's good. But if you don't fix the disappointment that you have, like, you have this business didn't work out, that didn't work out, I tried this before, whatever. If you don't fix that, you can't take anything I say and move forward. It's like, you know, we have little children in the house. You know, in America, people do take these old plastic things and they stick them in the electric socket. So your child doesn't, like my son took a pair of tweezers and he stuck it into the light socket because probably someone told him he shouldn't do that. And he just wants to know why. So disappointment, unresolved disappointment is like the plastic thing that sticks in the electric socket. You can't plug in because it's there, right? So when people experience disappointment,
Please tell us he didn't.
oh, he's fine.
Okay.
Yes, it's
He didn't even actually learn anything from it because I guess he was holding on to the end or something and it just went.
I just plugged that heater in.
Yeah.
I don't know, trying to put the thing on, it wasn't up and. And I realized that
It was
covered
actually-
right, there you go. There's no- So here's what happens. The average person, when something goes wrong, we go, why did that happen? Why did that happen? And the objective of that question is there's two reasons for that question. Number one, we're like, oh, that sucked. I want to make sure that that never happens again. Since I'm an orphan, I need to know what went wrong. I need to understand this. I need to make sure I don't make those mistakes again. Right? And the other objective to that question, why, is if people assume if I knew why, it will give me a certain level of peace. And that peace will heal my broken heart, my disappointment, then I can move forward. Okay. Now, the problem with that is fundamentally the wrong approach. Fundamentally. And here's why that's the wrong approach. When you ask a question, right, I ask, why did this not turn out? My brain will give me an answer because I asked a question. My brain will not filter the answers it's going to give me based on whether they're accurate or helpful, right? It will continue giving me answers, okay? And one of the problems with that is this. My wife doesn't like when I make this joke, but I like it. Anyone have any friends who aren't super bright, but they're happy? Anybody?
Yeah.
Right? They're like, life is good. And you're like,
Yeah.
there's like 50 things wrong with your life. Are you like clueless? Right? So the problem with why is if you are smarter and more disciplined and you're not a quitter, you'll keep asking this question, thinking that if you do it long enough, you will eventually fix things. The problem is all it does is fundamentally rewire your brain for depression and anxiety. Because literally you're training your brain what to look for. You're telling your brain, don't pay attention or document anything you're doing well or anything that is good in life. Only pay attention to the things which are not yet perfect and what you should have, or what might happen wrong, right? So we get overly obsessed with like, but this could happen, and then this would happen, and then that would happen, and that would happen, and then we might as well not even start. See, right? Great example is freshmen at Harvard have serious problems with depression. Right? They're like, Serge, congratulations on getting into Harvard. Why? I mean, like, you graduate from Harvard, you go apply somewhere, they're like, oh, you're graduating from Harvard. Cool, hired, right? And Serge's like, man, I'm just depressed lately. I'm like, but dude, you're at Harvard. He's like, yeah, but I'm not top of my class anymore. I'm like, okay, but you're at Harvard. Like, I can't get straight A's anymore. I'm like, but you're Harvard. See, it's like his brain is only looking for what's not perfect, what he could do better. Okay. So the first thing you do is you overcome this, you had disappointment, great. The question is, what is the hidden gift in what happened? Unless anyone here enjoyed being a victim. Anybody feel like, yes, I'm super excited how to become more of a victim. Unless you can answer the question of what's the hidden gift in what happened, you will always be a victim to whatever happened, right? So the question is, what's the hidden gift in it? The most extreme example of that is if you go on Netflix and you look up something called, it's called You're Not Your Guru. It's a documentary about Tony Robbins. In it, this woman stands up. She looks a little tired. And she says, I'm from Brazil. I had to sell all my furniture to get here. My whole family relies on me. They think I'm act together because I don't. I'm a fundamentally broken person. She goes, you see, I grew up in a church that practiced ritualistic sexual abuse from a very young age. And it broke me. And he looks at her and he goes, what's the hidden gift in it? And that, you better figure it out. So the next scene is the next day she stands up and she looks fundamentally different. She stands up, she goes, I answered that question. And she goes, I'm gonna overcome what I went through. I'm gonna take what I learned and I'm gonna help thousands of women change their life. Okay. So, and here's the other thing is we are spirit, soul, and body. And there's a spiritual aspect to this. I'm gonna cover a little bit from a Christian perspective is that often if you've had disappointment, often as Christians, we're like, okay, I'm pretty sure I prayed about this. Apparently, no one's listening. Right? Like, do you not care? Like, hello? Like, I'm pretty sure I did what I was supposed to do, and apparently you didn't do what you're supposed to do. You follow me? And God's like, Rebecca, see, you've been through some things. Good news is I have some peace to heal your broken heart. Sounds awesome. And God's like, there's a scripture in the Bible that says, God's peace passes understanding. Right? So God goes, we have peace. Awesome. But there'll be no understanding with it. And you're like, yeah, if to be honest, I think I would like the piece that's connected to understanding. And if I'm being honest, I kind of demand it. I'm owed some answers on this. Like, well, good luck. Because you're not going to get a supernatural piece to heal your broken heart, right? So if you've had issues like that, my recommendation is to kind of go through a very simple process prayer. It kind of goes like this, like, okay, God, I've got some disappointments. My heart's broken. Honestly, maybe I feel like a bit of a fool for having trusted you in this situation. But I do believe you're a good God. And for my part, I'm going to do one thing. I'm going to quit asking why, but I must have your peace to heal my broken heart. Right? If you do that properly, one of the things that can happen is you can not only overcome the disappointment, but here's the good news. Often your area of great disappointment will then become your area of great triumph. Right? That makes sense? But so then it becomes like someone goes, why did this situation happen? And you're like, I have no idea, but I'm good. Right? So it's like, oh, the understanding got disconnected from the peace. Is that helpful for everybody? So this process, if it's very good to look in areas of your life, and especially if you loop on worst case scenario, right? Can't relax. One thing that will happen is disappointment and trauma can so mess with your nervous system. And I won't spend a lot of time on this, but there's something called a polyvagal syndrome where your nervous system kind of flips and starts interpreting every messages of safety as disappointment, right? So if you have a lot of trauma and disappointment, and someone goes, relax, it's gonna be okay. The response is not like, oh, that's a good idea. The response is like, why would you give me such stupid advice? You know, if I take a nap in the afternoon, the werewolves come and steal the children. Like, that makes sense? It's like, so it can impact your ability to solve things. It can severely mess with your ability to actually heal, physically heal, because your nervous system will be like, yes.
So what percentage do you think of your clients come to you that have?
Oh, everyone, 100% of people have some level of disappointment, right? Would you, like, case in point, want to know how I brought Beautify in my life? Step one is I had one business that was doing amazing and someone messed with it, and in 1 month, my volume dropped by 90%. So I spent August and a little bit of September 2021 forgiving everybody and letting go of disappointment, right? Because I can't hold on to something beautiful if I'm keep holding on to the unforgiveness, disappointment, offense, right? So that was the, because over the years I've gotten better at overcoming disappointment. So if Beautify vanished off the face of the earth this month, might take a month off, but I'll be like, okay, what's the next thing? Does that make sense? I'm not gonna spend like, oh, I tried that business, those kind of business 10 years ago, and I'm not gonna do it anymore, and whatever. I'm like, I'm not gonna stay there. Any questions on that? So, all right. Any other questions? So we're going to talk about flow, okay? And the research on flow state is that executives, business people who are in flow are 500% more effective than people who aren't. Right? So like in business, we can look at people and go, well, we're in the same business. We have the same training, the same system. Why is their execution of the steps so radically more effective than mine, right? Like this team has a system that works, okay? Step, plug into the system. Some people plug into the system, you have this level of success. Other people plug into it this. They'll even say, well, I did everything. I followed all the steps. I did what you told me to do. It didn't work. Right? So that's what we're going to talk about, why this works for some people and not for other people. Okay? So first of all, the question is, like, what is this word flow? Right? We have...
Let people say what they.
Yeah, so what do you think flow is? When I say flow, what do you mean? What's that?
Go with the flow.
Go with the flow. Anybody else?
Grace and ease.
Grace and ease, good one, yeah.
Yeah, just when you're in it, don't get out of it.
Yeah. Stay in flow, yeah. So we all, you know, all the Kiwis love sports, right? What? So there's how about the beautiful symphony, like, right? So flow is this. We have a natural affinity to it, which means that, man, this person, something happened that was technically, I know it's super difficult, but they made it look easy, right? Oh, they did this athletic maneuver. Like, I can't even believe they did that. So there's a guy named Stephen Kotler. He writes a lot about flow, and he started off as a writer for ESPN, doing the like X Games stuff, right? And he goes, he didn't understand. He goes, like 1 year, you know, in a certain sport, they're like, bro, don't do that because you'll die, right? The next year, like everyone's doing it. You're like, what? How could they have such radical changes in what's possible? You understand me? And so we really started to study it. And so there's flow just means something that is difficult, but they made it look easy. In fact, if you ask the athlete, well, how'd that feel? It felt effortless. Triple flip to this, to that. It felt effortless. I was in flow. Okay. So you can use flow in any area of your life. Okay. The good news about using it in a business like this is it kind of acts as a laboratory, right? Is like you get feedback. Is it working or not? Okay. Like you're gonna have to jump your BMX bike and break your arm. Like, and that didn't work. I tried again. It's like, oh, is your business growing? Right? Is your income going up? Are you hitting ranks? How fast is it happening? You got great feedback. Okay. So the first place that we see first step for flow is something called selflessness. What the heck is that? Selflessness is about the ego. It's where you get your value or your identity. Okay. So this, the most important question you can possibly answer in your life is, where do you get your value? The stunning majority of people have never consciously created rules and values on where they get their value. They develop it subconsciously by accident in a way that disempowers them. What do I mean? People operate in two different ways. In one way, we'll write it this way. Force or power. Like there's two different ways you can go through life, in force or power. When you operate in force, you push on life and life pushes back. And you can get things done, but it feels like it requires a lot of energy. Like some of you go, this is how your business feels. Right. And as you operate in force, your value and your identity come from typically three places. You decide what you're worth based on your personal performance or how other people are treating you or how institutions are honoring you. Okay. So you can get some things done, but it requires a lot of work. There's often collateral damage. Okay. It's like, if I can Serge, man, congratulations on making $100 million. Too bad you're on your third marriage and 3 of your 4 children are in rehab and you're an alcoholic, but good for you. See what I mean? Force. Okay. To operate in power, where you're in flow, okay, when you operate in power, one of the key things is your value is completely dependent on unconditional love. For me as a Christian, I'm like, okay, God proved to me that he loved me unconditionally. It's not connected to my personal performance or how people treat me or institutions honor me. And it's not changing from today till tonight, no matter what happens today. You follow me so far? So if I'm connected to unconditional love, one thing I can do is I can be very wholehearted. What does that mean? I'm going to go for it. I'm going to go for it. Newsflash, I could fail and it will still hurt, but the failure no longer can put shame on me. It can't tell me what I'm worth anymore. You follow me? Right. So this is like you've done other businesses before. You have the ability to go, we're going to do it again versus like, oh, but what if it doesn't turn out? Oh, if it doesn't turn out, what does that mean? Shame. So the business gets to tell you what you're worth. I thought that God gets to tell you what you're worth. Is that making sense so far? So if we talk, the first place to step into flow and look at flow is selflessness. It is the thing you have to be aware of what's trying to trash talk you and tell you what you're worth. Okay. And understand this, anything that gets to tell you what you're worth owns you, right? So the things will be on the peripheral vision trash talking you. What if this? What doesn't work out? What if they say no? What if you spend money on this and it fails, right? Blah, 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 blah. So it's like, oh, it's someone trash talking you. That makes sense? Someone or something or some potential situation is going, I get to tell you what I'm worth. You're worth. I get to tell you what you're worth. right? It's like, so you have to step back into selflessness, be aware of, okay, this is putting pressure on me, trying to tell me what I'm worth, right? And sometimes you have to go, no, you don't, right? A great example, my father-in-law, tremendously blessed to have him as my father-in-law, an extraordinary man. He's also kind of very slow and deliberate because that's just his personality, which is great. But he was the executor of his great aunt's estate, and his sister and brother-in-law, whatever. People get, you understand, people get super goofy over inheritances. Anybody? Yeah. Well, his brother-in-law one day says to him, "You have no honor in my house." So, like, that is a super harsh thing to say to somebody, right? My father-in-law says to him, "I don't get my honor from you." Ooh, interesting. See how that's a good example? Is like someone's like, "I get to steal away with." I'm like, actually, you don't. Right? I want to give a the best example if I can. And again, as a Christian, I have to just be authentic, and I got to share from that perspective. Does that make sense? So, one of the things that happens with selflessness is people try and attach. People think they need to attach understanding to agreement. And I'll give you an example of this. Say, for example, if I owned this home, okay, and I decided to sell it, and I put it on the market for $1 million, New Zealand, and someone offers me $900,000 for it, and another person offers me $6 million for it. Like, I put it on the market because I think it's worth $1 million. And this makes sense to me based on the comps. This $1 million, that's a good price. Makes sense to me. In that scenario, what should I do? One person offers me $6 million. One person offers me $900,000. What should I do?
Why not? Why not? 6 million?
No, just make the money.
So you want an understanding of the value before you agree to it. You say,
Take the money.
forget the understanding. I can agree without the understanding. That makes sense. Okay? So you know, like if I start questioning the person who offers me $6 million, my wife is like, "Don't listen to him. Shut up. We'll move out by Friday." Like, no problem. Okay. So, because I can agree, I have to agree, and I can only accept one value, but I can't agree with the higher value without understanding it. You follow me, sober? So I'm like, I'm gonna sell this house. I hear Aspen, Colorado in the States. That's a beautiful place. All the movie stars, all the rich people live there. I'm gonna buy a house there. What do you think the average, on average, what's the average single family home price in Aspen? Anyone want to guess?
$6 million.
It's $8 million. Let's be honest, what are those homes actually worth? What do you think?
6 million New Zealand will get you there, won't it? No, it won't.
Right?
No, other way.
I mean, the average is 8 million US. I mean, what are those homes actually worth? Who thinks they got it?
Real one.
900,000. You think they're worth 900,000? Right? They're worth $8 million because the buyer determines the value.
Yeah.
100% of the time, buyer determines value. You follow me so far?
Yeah.
Right? If I go sell it and someone offers me that, I go, okay, yes, right? So again, this is so important. So the end of this story is this analogy. A couple from Louisiana in the U.S. in the 1950s, they travel to Europe, and while in Europe, they buy a painting for $60. We'll put it there, $60. And they bring it home. They enjoy it. After they pass away, someone buys it from their estate for $10,000. Okay, because he thinks it might be something else. He spends 6 years validating, restoring, uncovering something under the painting, and then he sells it to a Swiss art collector. Guess how much? Who wants to guess high?
2 million.
Anybody else?
10 million.
Hmm?
10 million.
Sells it for $88 million. Now, from $60. Now, the Swiss guy sells it to Russian for $129 million. The Russian sells it to a Saudi Arabian prince for $451 million. And it sits in a safe on his yacht. And that's how a Muslim man buys a painting of Jesus by Leonardo da Vinci for $451 million. Well, that's it. From here to here, that's impressive, right? What did the painting do to increase its value?
Nothing.
Nothing.
People sold it from.
The buyer determines the value, right? Now, so from my Christian perspective, I believe that God proved his unconditional love to me by buying me for a price, right? But I have to agree with it. You follow me? So when I allow how I'm performing to put shame on me, what other people say about me, how institutions honor me, does that make sense? I'm saying, I know you offer this, but I don't understand it. And since I don't understand it and I could argue against it, I will not agree with it. I will agree with what intellectually I can grab hold of. Is this helpful?
It's like the person that had the $60 painting. If somebody said to them, that's worth 450 million, they would not believe it.
They'd be like, that does not make any sense whatsoever.
Yeah.
Okay. Good luck. There you go. Too bad. So selflessness. The next thing is
Wait. So I just wanted to say, I listened to this several times and I think 2 weeks ago, I said, how does our worth connect, or our lack of self-worth, or whatever, or having self-worth connect to the word selflessness, which is about more than, so explain what you said.
Basically,
stand up
it
so you can speak in the mic here. Good kids. Ooh.
When you are sure of your worth, you're not always trying to prove it with everything you do. And you can do things for others, offer them things for their benefit.
without needing anything.
I don't have to protect myself primarily, because I'm good. All right. Number 2, timelessness. In life, there are occasionally 3-year-old children running around your home, sometimes, literally or figuratively, and often they have agendas. Anyone understand that? An agenda. This is what I need. It's a crisis. It has to be handled right now. Right? Like, daddy. Like, they're put pressure now.
It was an angel, he's talking about our kid.
Yeah, it's like my mom was like, you're too strict on your kids. I'm like, they like outnumber us. If we're not, we have rules, we can't leave the home. Okay, right? So life is like, you have to, you must, you should, you have to, you must, you should, right? You can't take a break. You can't go fishing. You need to do it now, right? What about me? Pay attention to me, you see? And so what typically happens for most people is you wake up in the morning and you go, okay, what crisis? I go from crisis to crisis to crisis, like all day. I never stop and go, vision, how should I handle it? I'm always like, focus. You understand? And so you have to pay attention to what in your life is trying to put pressure on you like this. Okay? Like, I'll often catch myself and I'll stand in life and out loud. I know what things are like. Oh, but this problem, you should worry about that. What about your kid? Have to make the right decisions. What if they do this? What if they don't do that? And this, and like, but the customs people, and the this, and the TGA, but if this happens, that happens, you should worry about it right now. And like, this gotta get handled before you do that. See what I mean? So sometimes, literally, I'll stand on my life and I'll go, no, no, sit down, no, right? I remember having a conversation. We have amazing children, and my youngest, she was so strong-willed when she was little. I remember having a conversation with her, and I very kindly said to her this, I go, honey, this strong will is someday it will serve you, someday. But from this day until that day, I win every single time, right? Now, you don't have to be harsh with things, but it's a certain energy. Does that make sense? Right? If you want to get a great example of this, go online and watch Caesar Milan, the dog whisperer. Anyone like dogs, right? We have an Australian Shepherd he's my youngest daughter's dog. He's super smart, but the problem with those dogs is they're always kind of want to be in charge, right? So for his sake, we always have to be in charge. Does that make sense? And it doesn't mean yelling at him like every time I go out to the front door and he's like trying to get past me. Does that make sense? Like, and I don't yell at him, but I go to the door and I just stop. And he's like, "Are we going? Are we going?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, I forgot." Right? Does that make sense? Like I don't have to yell at him. I'm like, I'm in charge. And he behaves. I'm like, okay, now we will do it. Not on your agenda, right? Like he doesn't get fed whenever he wants to. He doesn't get pet whenever he wants to. Or else my life would be the whole day feeding him and petting him and letting him out, back in and out and in and out. Like it would be crazy, right? So timelessness. Okay, this is this has a lot to do with. Oh, life is crazy right now. You better do some fun things and tap into tranquility to get into creativity. Oh, I don't have time for that right now. If you don't have time for it, you're going to solve all your problems in force instead of power. And you want to know why life just never gets anywhere. No, it just never worked out for me. How's this? I'm busy. I'm so busy. Okay. Good luck. Right. Next one, effortlessness. This has a lot to do with how you interpret this word right here. Frustration. Frustration. You want to get frustrated over something? Is that emotion? The vast majority of people, when you go, here's how you interpret that emotion. It's like, I'm not sure if things are going to work out. I'm not sure if I have what it takes. What are you going to do? Well, I'm going to move forward with the same mindset and same approach because I'm not a quitter. See the problem? That's so frustrating. You got to keep going now. What if frustration was actually like you have your GPS, your voice prompts on your GPS, and you're driving along, and you're not really paying attention, and all of a sudden the GPS starts saying, make a legal U-turn, make a legal U-turn, why? Oh, you got off the freeway, and you're about to do a 4-hour detour on the dirt road, and the GPS, i.e. frustration, saying, going the wrong way, going the wrong way, going the wrong way. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Right? So if you learn to reinterpret frustration, like, I'm so frustrated, what should you do? Change. Okay. One of my favorite examples is this. Probably the best way to rewire your brain for happiness and effectiveness is actually to take a journal. And this has everything I'm telling you today, this has that most clinical research behind it. Take your journal, write in your journal, not how you're feeling. Forget that. You write in your journal, what am I doing well today? What is good in my life? Right? Because I'm training my brain instead of the problem. I'm like, okay, pause that. What have you done well? Document it. Like I need to rewire my brain. And every time I write something in the journal, pen and paper, there's something in my brain called a mirror neuron, and it thinks it happened again. So it gives me double credit. So by writing in my journal, I can rewire my brain for happiness and effectiveness and increase anything I'm doing better, right? so I had often told people to do that. I very rarely did it myself. If I actually followed all the advice I give to my coaching clients all the time, my life would be amazing, right? But there it is. So then one Christmas, my secret weapon, my wife, she gives me a journal, and it's a journal from Turkey, and the paper is super high quality, and she gives me a super nice fountain pen and some aesthetic aspect of a really nice pen and a really nice journal. I was like, oh, I like it. Does that make sense? It's just, but for the journal to work, you have a piece of leather, because the paper is so thin, right? About this thick, but it's like 400 pages. So you put a piece of leather and then a piece of lined paper, and then you put what you're going to write on top. That makes sense? But this would fall out and it would be annoying. So brilliantly, I got a paper clip. Flip, holds everything together.
One of the big.
A big thing, pink, you know what I'm saying then? And life is good. Well, last spring I was like crazy busy, like this kind of like I'm making money, but like this and this and this, very little of the timelessness and a lot of the frustration too, though. That makes sense. And I went on a trip. I came back from the trip, and I pulled the journal out of my backpack, and there was no paper clip. And I don't know if in New Zealand you have the term "the straw that broke the camel's back." Always, that was the last thing. I'm like, what a freaking time for a paperclip errand. You know what I mean? like this is like put me over the edge. Like a lot of what? Frustration. It was like the next week or so, my wife and I are like, we need to take a break. And we drove like 3 hours to the coast, to the beach, to this beautiful little town called Shelter Cove, California. And on it, there's like the black sand beach, which is 26 miles long. Like you could hike for 3 days on this black sand beach, and it's pristinely clean, and it's a perfectly beautiful day. And finally, I'm like, taking a break, and going from this to this, right? And I'm writing my journal, and I'm meditating, and my wife is taking a nap in the sunshine. I'm on the little camping chair, and I look in the sand right in front of me, right there. When I finally do this, and guess what's sitting in the sand? A black paper clip. Now I did later find the original paper clip, a black paper clip. I'm like, oh, I mean, there's divine provision for even the paper clips in life. Because you go, I should handle paper clip myself and not ask for help. Now, what should I have done? As soon as I was frustrated, if I caught it and I'm like, okay, what's the easy way? Likely, I would have gone, you should take the backpack and turn it over and dump it out. Ping, oh, there's my paper clip. It could have been like a 5-second fix. But no, I was like, right? So allow, no one gets mad that their car has a low oil light on it. Does that make sense? Right? You're like, oh, thank God. When my car has low oil, this little light goes on. I pull over and I put oil in it instead of ruining the entire engine, right? So frustration can act like that for you. Does that make sense? It's like, oh, I'm so frustrated. You ask, okay, hold on. How could this be easy? Not, why is this so frustrating? Why do those people do that to me? Why did it work out? How come those people point the brain in a different direction, change yourself, spirit, soul, body, all of a sudden you're like, oh, wait, I have the solution. Think, right? Because we're all in business. You want to get paid. You solve problems. You solve problems at a higher level. You get paid better, right? If you're in frustration, maybe ask yourself this. I get paid to solve problems. I'm about to get promotion. What's the easiest way to do this? Okay. The last one is richness. And we've covered the richness a bit because if you're disconnected from richness, you're limiting the results in your life to your perfect performance and what you think you technically deserve. Okay? Versus, oh, where'd that come from? I don't even think I really earned that, but thank you. That makes sense. Like, oh, yes, I'll take it, right? Best example of how I've really this, if you ask Steve, what is really the key that your business goes like this, it's like flow. Right? My execution of how to do network marketing is better because I stay in flow. And one thing I do, again, spiritual body, is I will just simply, I'll go on, stand on my life, and I'll go like this. Does that make sense? Stand in my life, right? Looking at life. And this is a physical representation of the exercise of my will and faith. Like, come to me, right? I'm breathing expansively because it's easy. Like, this is not hard to do, right? But I can do a lot with it. See, is that a good example, right? It's like it feels expansive. And so often one thing I've said this a million times. Easier and more abundant. Take a deep breath in. Easier and more abundant. And easier and more abundant. Hitting and staying at double diamond was easier than hitting and staying at diamond. Was easier than hitting elite. Right? Does it make sense? It's kind of a nice trend, don't you think? Like I allow it to be easier. And I solve problems at a higher level, and my business grows. See? Boom, 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 up, up, up. Any questions on this? Would you like to? All right.
So I'd like to know, I'd like to know what stood out to you, or maybe what another word for the selflessness portion.
That the word makes sense. What does it mean to you?
Synonym.
Laying a ego.
Ego. Excellent.
In the value of the thing about how we program to be valued by others.
Value yourself, where you get your value. Beautiful. Really, some people say humility is power under control.
Here's a great example. Definition for humility. What if humility was simply agreeing with what God says about you? Who has a ridiculously high opinion of you? So understand, if I'm completely authentically in divine humility, I will look like I'm in pride to people who want to attach their value to performance. See? But it's easy. I'm like, well, of course things work out for me. I mean, totally, I'm loved, and does that make sense? Like, this should work out for me.
That is selfless, because it's beyond your identity
Yeah.
of self.
I didn't value myself this. Someone else valued me this way, and I simply agreed with it. I don't really understand it, but I'm like, okay. God, you seem to know what you're doing better than I do, so I don't quite get it, but yes.
What about timelessness?
When you're in flow too, you don't experience time as much as when you're like in force. You know, that the processes are sort of timeless. You know, something can happen in 10 minutes that might take another business 10 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like this awareness, you're kind of floating above time instead of always under the pressure of time.
Yeah, time's a real force concept in our lives, I think.
I just read that every town used to basically set its own, they decided when it was a certain time. And a lot of places were really upset when they standardized it because they lost their right to be able to say, this is the time. It's very interesting when you start diving into things about time. Anybody else have a synonym or thoughts on time?
I'm busy.
I'm busy.
I'm busy.
Oh, unbusy. Awesome.
Unbusy versus I'm busy.
Yes. Excellent.
My niece says she has this friend who very deliberately, because my mouth, the words of creative power. She goes, my friend always says this. Like, yeah, if you ask her, you have time to do this? My friend always says, I have an abundance of time. Oh, can you afford to do that? I have an abundance, right? So very deliberately stepping into that,
Yeah.
right?
Very counter mainstream and now we move on to effort. We didn't give them a lot of food.
Frustration is the low oil light.
Frustration is
That was
the
good.
low oil nut, like-
Should you ignore the oil light for a while because you're busy, or should you do it like?
Breathe and right.
Yes.
You're losing air pressure, engine pressure when that light goes on.
Yeah, you're about to get you could stop now and just put some oil in it, or stop later and put a new engine in it.
Yes, it costs you more.
It'll cost more later.
It'll cost you a lot more later.
Yeah, it feels like stopping is gonna be a waste, but it's gonna cost a lot more later. Anyone else?
I think one is I'm too poor to buy cheap.
Oh, I'm too poor to buy cheap. Interesting. Just that concept of, not wasting your effort, your money on something that's not gonna last.
Now, cost a lot.
Excellent.
That's an frustration is an invitation to reinterpret.
Oh, that's so good. Frustration, invitation to reinterpret.
Here's a biblical example analogy in the Old Testament. It says God told his children, he goes, super good news. I have given you a land. It has vineyards you didn't plant, wells you didn't dig, houses you didn't build. It is a land flowing with milk and honey. Now, you go to the New Testament in Hebrews, it says, the children of Israel never entered in the promised land because they never entered into rest. So, and the Bible, well, you're like, oh, that's easy for you. Well, no, hold on. The Bible does say we labor to enter into rest. It's not the default. Not easy to operate in flow. Like, you'd be shocked about how much time I spend going, okay, refocus. Like I spent an hour in the sauna going, okay, where am I on? What's the deal? Okay. Seriously. I'm like, no, wait, I'm doing this to this person. I'm not at this situation. I'm not at that. Like, okay, tell him back, like, okay. Right? Because it's like, all the frustration, you understand the frustration of the business kind of flows up, right? It's like, oh, I have a team of 10 people and they're driving me crazy. Like, okay, cool. Like 4,000 people complaining about stuff, right? It's like, so it's you labor to enter into rest, and when you enter into rest, then you technically it looks like you're getting more than you really deserve, and it's easier.
Yeah, even with the income and the level of business you have, you're saying that you have to prioritize to make time to put yourself in the right state of mind. Even if, because you could technically be busy 24 hours a day. I know.
Mindfulness instead of mind.
Yeah. Exactly.
Fullness.
Mindful.
Yeah.
Mindful.
So it kind of helps when you start thinking, oh, what's this in them? How can I take this with me? Like, what is, because it's these little things you can apply yourself, looking back at the notes. Oh, where did something feels out of sync. Where was it? Which one of these things, if you have synonyms for them, have it in your own words, you can be like, oh, it's there. Oh, it's this thing. I can feel the time. I'm feeling so much time pressure that you can be like, okay, why am I feeling that? You can kind of figure it out.
So we've been spending a lot of time on airliners, planes. What percentage of time is the 787 Dreamliner plane on perfect target? What percentage of time? They stay on track navigation, or are they all
You mean when
most of the
flying
time
somewhere?
off? Yeah, when they're flying.
His dad was a pilot, so he knows.
100% of time on track.
No.
You mean on track as in?
Oh, you
in the right
mean,
direction?
hang on.
Steady.
Do you mean
It's
time
actually
Most of the
wise
time-
in direction?
Most of the time they are off.
Ah,
They're always recorrecting.
That is
Correcting.
okay. That's interesting. Oh,
almost
right.
all the time off, but they don't like
'Cause they
get
might
out
be
of
too-
flow and be out of flow for weeks and weeks and weeks. Be like, oh yeah, I better get back, right? It's like to take deliberate time to check.
Ah,
back-
right, because
back
there
check,
could be turbulence might come and throw them off, and
Exactly.
then they've got a. that's quite
So
a-
one of the best ways to see if you're in flow, your physical body is a gift. Go. When's the last time I breathed easily and effortlessly? When's the last time I put a smile on my face? Right? Oh wait, I've been like this for like a week. I'm like, oh, maybe you shouldn't spend a week doing that. Maybe you should spend like get better at it, right? One of my business mentors, a guy named David Bird, helped the company go from $0 to $1 billion in cumulative sales. He goes, like, I used to, I used to get frustrated, angry, and like for days, and then I cut it down to like a day, and then I cut it down to like 6 hours, then an hour. He goes, now, like, something goes wrong. Good for you. Have a total pity party meltdown. You got 5 minutes, right? And you boom, get back, right? Because like it's costly. Like, oh, I wasn't paying attention. Navigation system error. And we're like 300 miles off course. Like, we're gonna have enough gas to get to New Zealand. I'm like, it could be bad.
So the last one is richness.
Easier and more abundant.
Easier, more abundant. Now, I don't know about you guys, but there's a lot of movies in the US about the evil rich people. Right? And there's there, some people do get rich that way, just by forcing it. And people, it has big repercussions. But I know sometimes I have to spend time releasing those old ideas of, the richer you are, the more responsibility, the more accountability, the more people, the more lonely, the more isolated, like blah, 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 blah. Like, oh, easier, more abundant, more of your heart. They say money is like a
Magnifier.
magnifier. But magnetizer too, but yeah, magnifier of who you really are. So you're getting hands on people who love to do good things. Like, oh, that's really different than this certain very limited idea that sometimes we see portrayed in the media.
I'll give you a good practical example of this. Because if you don't fix the richness, you'll have like a thermostat setting on a certain income that you want to make more, but you never change the thermostat setting subconsciously, what you deserve, all that. And a certain company did an experiment on some of their employees. People think it was probably IBM, but the company did not advertise what they did to manipulate their employees for an experiment. So here's what they did. They had salespeople who were paid on commission, okay? And they took some salespeople who earned this amount of money, and they changed their territory and how they were getting compensated. So all of a sudden they were making this amount of money. Some of them quit. Most of them did whatever it took to get back to what they were used to. Interesting. They took other people who were making this amount of money and changed their territory and compensation till they were making this amount of money. Bizarrely, some of them quit. Who knows why? Most of them did whatever it took to get back to where they were before. Interesting. It's like, oh, I want to be rich. Yeah, but do you think you deserve it? Oh, I'm not one of those. I'm not a leader. Yeah, I'm not very good at that. I blah, 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 blah. Okay. Like, that person who smiled at you in the coffee line that you never struck up a conversation with, they could have made you $1 million. But you never saw the opportunity because it wasn't in alignment with what you think you deserve. See?
So any other synonyms for richness? Just a few words. Popcorn. Everyone's kind of talking at the same time, call it popcorn. Verb it. Popcorn.
Grace.
Great.
Expensive.
Yeah, expansive.
Inheritance.
Mhm.
Someone else worked for it and gave it to you. And you deserve it by relationship, not
Okay. But I just noticed that my family, where there's been farms distributed, those people who didn't really have good self-work and things, they don't have any of their inheritance left.
Mm,
And then those of us who maybe have different things have invested it and, you know, for the double dip, and then some have just kind of kept the same amount.
Yeah.
Yeah, and what everyone does with that.
Yeah. Jim Rohn said this. He goes, "Pity the man who inherits $1 million who isn't a millionaire."
Yeah.
It's true.
Like you find that with the lottery
Ah,
winners.
Yep.
Yeah.
Just.
Yeah. So let's take a second and everybody stand up. And I want to reinforce what Steve was teaching about what, you know, we kind of magnify as focus and hardworking. So I want everyone to put your hand around your eyes and then just look at one little spot. Look at that. Don't let anything from around get into your line of vision.
Shoulders forward,
Yep,
constricted
hunch
breathing,
forward.
frown on your face.
Notice your breathing. Just notice it. Look at kind of compressed, especially after lunch, right? All right. And then I want you to look up, lift your hands up and out. Actually, physically.
Shoulders back, chest up.
And then how much more can you see? Doing a physical posture when you're facing problems can literally change the perception of solutions coming your way. So this is a tool, a physical tool, because you don't want to fight emotion with emotion. I think Steve's going to talk about that. But you want to bring basically a gun to a knife fight. You want to bring something more powerful than what you're experiencing, not try to fight equal with equal, right?
I have problems. I think I'll go fishing.
So just take a second, shake it out, and so then you can kind of be ready for the next part that we're going to go
I
into.
think we're done.
This part.